Hello guys, and welcome to another discussion video. So I've been playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and the story is absolutely amazing so far, so I wanted to discuss a few things about it today in this video, and Anton Retro, who's also been playing the game a lot, is joining me. So basically, in this video, we're going to go through a couple different segments here. So the first one will contain no spoilers, and it will basically be things like the general plot, things before Chapter 2, and the characters. And the next one will contain minor spoilers, and it will be the hero quests we've done so far, like the hero side quests, like Valdi and different ones like that. And then the final part will be major spoilers for the main story of the game, for what we've done so far. Like currently we're at the beginning of Chapter 6. So basically, if you've played, if you haven't gotten to that part, you might want to avoid that final part of the video. So let's go ahead and talk about like some non-spoiler things, like the general plot. And I just really like the general plot of the game. I just find it interesting, like, since there's the two sides fighting, and then a group of characters come together to kind of take down, like, a greater evil, kind of. But I definitely find that more interesting than the plots of the other Xenoblade games, because it gives
more intriguing.
Yeah,
you really don't know what to expect, and that's something that I've really felt with this one, that I'm always trying to push it forward to see like what's gonna happen next, because there's really no like idea of where the story, what their like goal is. Like in past Xenoblade games, it's like, okay, we're doing this or we're doing this, and they have a correct idea of exactly how things.
Yeah, you know exactly what you're gonna do in the other Xenoblade games, like, you know, like where you're going, and like Xenoblade 1.
Like early on,
you
know, Xenoblade 2, you find out exactly what you're doing, and then early on they're kind of they're close, but then they figure out something, and you know, then the story kind of just goes off in a direction. But yeah, pretty much in the past games, it's pretty much just like, okay, here's exactly where we're going. And this is the story ahead, kind of, pretty simple.
And also some other things about the story, it's definitely much more dark. Like, even if you haven't played the game, you'd see that this game is much darker than the others, since there's basically an endless war going on. The characters only live 10 years, which is really interesting, and it definitely creates a lot of tension in different moments. Like with Mio especially, since early in the game you find out that she doesn't have much time left, so it definitely creates a lot of tension in the game.
Yeah.
And it also creates some interesting character dynamics as well, because the characters basically are forced to get along. Like when they first meet each other in Chapter 1, like they basically they're basically killing each other, because they're on like the two different sides and everything, and it takes something like the Mobius to get them to stop fighting, and then also Van Damme that also helps them to become the Ouroboros. So it's just and then after that they just their dynamic definitely starts to grow and everything. And it's just really interesting to see them getting along. And the characters in general are really interesting. Noah is definitely one of my favorite video game characters of all time. I really like his personality. I feel like he always wants to do what's morally right. Like, it's just, he doesn't really seem like that generic kind of protagonist you see in a lot of JRPGs and different things. He actually has an interesting personality. And,
it reminds me of Shulk.
Yeah.
A lot.
I would even say he's a lot deeper than Shulk, because there's definitely like a lot of things to him that are pretty interesting. Like, as early as like some of the first cutscenes in the game, you see that he's definitely different from the norm. Seeing him sending off soldiers from the other side that's just an indication that he's already a lot different, and that he's just a really interesting character overall.
Yeah.
And then, Mio is also an interesting character, too. Like, it's just, like, sometimes you see, I feel like I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it seems like slowly throughout the course of the game, she kind of gets, she kind of starts to show her personality more and everything. And it's just really interesting how in the game she only has like a certain amount of time left, and like I was saying earlier, it definitely creates a lot of tension. Yeah. And I also think it's interesting how the characters get to see like the different sides, like when they go into the Ouroboros form. They basically kind of learn about each other, and I feel like that's what they've been doing throughout the course of the game. They've really been like learning about each other and everything. And yeah, so is there anything you want to add on like the different characters or some characters that stood out to you?
I really like Tyon's character.
Yeah.
He was very very careful. Yeah, I really like his kind of the way that he tries to be very advanced. You know, he tries to act a lot more smarter, right? That he knows exactly what he's doing. So I really like his character.
And yeah, and another character that I like is Lance, because at first he comes across as like a Rhine type character, like kind of like basically kind of like a more less serious, like almost comic relief character at the beginning. But then he's definitely more serious, and it seems like he's definitely like more serious, and he has a lot more to him than you think. It's almost like kind of like the equivalent of how Noah is to Shulk. That's basically kind of how Lance is to Rhine. It definitely extends the character a lot and adds like definitely a more interesting personality overall. Yeah. So yeah, I just really like the characters in this game. Like, as in a couple characters that we didn't mention yet, I also like Uni as well. I really like the conversations, basically, like, some of the confrontations she gets into, like, sometimes, like, she's always, like, like, yeah. But,
I also like the designs. The designs of the characters are amazing. I'm so glad they went in this direction instead of the Xenoblade 2 direction, because I wasn't really a big fan of how they handled the character designs. Some were clearly better than others, and they all didn't really match the game. Some of them felt very, like, from completely different games.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they went with a consistent character design, and they also look very modern. They have a lot more, like, a modern, design, but they also have, like, futuristic elements and sci-fi elements, which is something that this game really goes in with. A lot of sci-fi elements, doesn't it?
And
a lot more futuristic stuff.
I really like how each character looks distinct as well. They're based on like different races throughout the Xenoblade series. Like, for example, like Noah would be Hans, and Uni would be Hyentia. And then Senna is also like representing the Blade, and I kind of find it interesting how she's the only one with an American accent, and she's like the one representing the Blade. I think that's kind of interesting. I feel like Senna in general is kind of underrated as a character.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but I feel like it takes a little longer for them to touch on her character, like, and go into her backstories.
Yeah, for sure. It does take a while.
But when they do, it definitely doesn't disappoint, like, with how they go into her backstory and everything. They definitely bring out her personality more later in the game, it seems. And I really, like, I'm not going to spoil anything about them, but I really like the backstories of each of the characters and their memories that they have. Like, their memories are really interesting, and they just add a lot to the story. It almost reminds me of the memories from Breath of the Wild, but even more fleshed out and kind of linked into the story. Like even
one element that I find with the characters is that, like, you know, you get pretty much 3 party members at once. You know?
Yeah.
So it's not like in other games where they kind of drip feed, like each character gets added onto the team, right? In this game, it's like you start with 3 and then adds 3.
And then you basically, like, yeah, very early in the game, you get all 6. Well, obviously, there's also the heroes, but very early in the game, you have all 6, and I really like that, since it gives you a lot of opportunities to kind of work with these characters, and then they added, like, the different classes. So I feel like that's why you get them so early, because you can change around the classes and everything, and there's a lot to do with these characters, and I just really like that aspect.
I feel like my only problem, though, is, like, one thing with, like, I guess we should go, I guess, into some of the heroes, right?
Yeah, but, yeah, we'll talk about the heroes for a little bit.
So, like, so one thing with the heroes, I really wish that they were actually playable. Like, you could switch to them.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think that would have been a nice addition. Like, I don't see why they couldn't have done that.
Yeah. But speaking of the heroes, kind of want to go in, like, we're kind of going into that now, but basically this is going to have minor spoilers. So if you don't want to hear about the hero side quest before Chapter 6, I would just maybe not watch this part, but basically, like, if you haven't gotten all of the hero quests and everything, because some of them are optional, but I think the hero stories are really interesting. Some of them I do have a couple problems with, but most of them are just really interesting. Like, all of them are in really weird situations. They're kind of, like, different from the norm, like, with, Valdes and everything. Like, at first you don't, most of the heroes are, like, commanders of their colonies. Like, you wouldn't really expect, Valde to be a, like, the commander of that colony, but it's kind of interesting how, like, you learn his story and everything. And one thing I do find weird about that one specifically is that you don't fight a Mobius, you only fight the, Levnus thing. You don't actually fight the, like, most of them you do fight the Mobius, but, like, that was a little weird how you didn't there. And then a lot of them are in weird situations, like, with Junipers, they, are in, like, a thing where,
their colony's abandoned, right?
Yeah, and their flame clock is running out, and they're about to die. They're kind of in a dire situation there, but they really don't think of it much. Like, I mean, well, they do, but they, like, they just want to, like, basically let it go and go back into nature and everything. It's just really interesting, like, the situations that the heroes get into. And then the one, I'm not sure if you did this one, but the one by, the Keves Castle,
I haven't done that one.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So, yeah, but basically, I'm just gonna say the start of that one, but basically in that one, she was fighting her own soldiers, which was really weird, and it's just weird, like, the different situations that they get into than Fiona's. I'm not gonna get into that one much, because you haven't done that one either. That one is also a weird situation as well, and there's some interesting things that happen there. But yeah, some of them I do wish they could be fleshed out a little more. Like, some of them, like, I wish you could, like, fight the Mobius at the end each time, but most of them are very good, and I really like how they're just interesting scenarios that definitely mix up the story of the game. But what are your thoughts on them?
I think they just really add to the experience, you know?
Yeah.
I just really like how they're handled, and I like how the stories aren't really as simple as, like, oh wow, you just join our team, you know?
Yeah.
They keep everything quite you know, in depth with them. So
yeah, so now we're gonna go on to the spoilers. Okay, so at this point, don't watch if you don't want to be spoiled, and, like, this is basically
and I recommend playing this game. I really do recommend playing it. So,
yeah.
You know, even if you have, like, the slightest you know, want to play this game, I would not recommend going past
what we're gonna talk about is everything up to the beginning of Chapter 6. So, okay. So, wow, this game throws a lot at you.
Yeah.
Before we get into the big stuff, I just wanted to say, like, it's really interesting here. Like, I mean, like, first you figure out, like, oh, the Mobius is basically controlling everything. It's like you slowly kind of get into that. And then you realize that, like, everyone is basically being cloned and reborn and everything. And that is just really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they first foreshadow it with...
They do.
Yeah, when Uni finds the dog tag on the husk, that's, like, in that one, old battlefield area. And, like, from that moment on, I was actually streaming when I found that. I was like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. And then they find, Ethel in the Keves castle, and it's really interesting. Like, it just kind of definitely plays out that theme. And then you find out that they're actually Mobius that are versions of Noah and Mio. And it's just really interesting. It's just really
honestly,
wild.
I kind of expected that end guy to be Noah. I mean, he looks like Noah.
Like when they...
Like, it was kind of obvious, but then when I saw Mio, I was like, okay.
I think, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think the first time you see the N is in the Keves castle, I think, when you're by the queen. Like, when I saw him for the first time, I was like, they don't really, like, show it entirely since his face is kind of covered, but he's like they kind of hint that it's Noah. Like, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is Noah, but then it is! It actually is, but it's really interesting. And just the thing in general, with the fact that they're, like, reborn and everything, is just really interesting.
Yeah.
And then the other thing with the city and everything, with the, like, because basically in the game you're, like, going up to the sword march and everything, and you don't really know what's gonna happen there, and then you find, like, this whole city there, and basically this whole organization with the lost numbers and everything. So that's definitely really interesting there. Like,
yeah.
For some reason, at the beginning of the game, I thought the city was going to be, like, the main thing you go up to that's gonna, like, in the game.
That's, like, the entire adventure.
Yeah, like, I thought that was going to be, like, the Mobius headquarters or something.
Because also, like, they were like, 3 months, right? For, like, it will take. I was like, okay, it's probably going to take some time. Probably be the entire game by the time we get there. But, no, it was much sooner than I expected.
Yeah, definitely more comparable to, like, Xenoblade 1, like how you go, like, kind of go up to one point, like with the Bionis, and then go on the Mechonis. I think that's kind of, basically kind of comparable to that, because you get, like, basically get more to see after you reach the city, and more things that you have to do. And, yeah, let's talk about that ending of Chapter 5. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the ending was...
Oh, wow. But basically, so each chapter previous, they do something... Like, I just want to talk a little bit about each chapter before, because they always get out of the situation in some way before that. Like, in, I think it was, like, chapter 3, where they break... Which one? I think it's either it's chapter 2, where they break the flame clock for the first time. I thought that was pretty wild. And then they go to, and then later in the game, they go to the Keves castle, destroy the Annihilator, fight the Queen, which I thought was really interesting. The Queen turns out to be fake, and it's just like,
that part I was like,
how can they, I was like, how can the game top this? Like, this is like, this is crazy. They're like,
I thought she was gonna be like possessed or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought she was gonna be, like, mind controlled by Mobius, like how, like, Ethel and the other ones were. But no, it turned out to be, like, a fake queen and everything. I was like, ooh, the mask comes off. Is it gonna be Melia? Oh, it's fake. And I was actually a little disappointed for a second, because I thought they were just, for some reason, they just randomly had a fake Melia robot that just as a reference for some reason. I was like, is that going to be the extent of it?
And honestly, if for a second, yeah, like I mean, they said her name, you know.
Yeah.
Like they fully said her full name.
Like Melia Antiqua.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And then, but I thought for 1 second that it was like Melia got turned into a robot. I was like,
yeah, or I thought it was like a robot based on Melia and Melio. Well, the reassuring thing is that when they said that they're like those were the fake queens, and there's actually real queens that you have to find in the game. So that was reassuring and everything. But that end of chapter 4, I was like, how is the game gonna top this? I mean, obviously it is gonna be at some point, but like I was like, I didn't okay, but for chapter 5, I did not expect them to go that far. Just like with the first part of the ending of chapter 5, I thought it was already pretty crazy. Like you're basically fighting the other versions of Noah and Mio. Like that was already pretty crazy in itself. And basically like how Mobius M was controlling like the characters and everything. I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, this is wild, but they're probably gonna get out of it somehow, like they always do. Nope. They're like what after Senna and Lance. Well, that was crazy in itself. They were basically just trying to like, basically going up and trying to just I'm not gonna say the word on YouTube, but S-bomb the Mobius N. So I thought that was already pretty crazy, but then, boom, the powers get completely stripped away. They're helpless. They get thrown in jail and they can't escape. Like, and it's just like, wow, it just breaks down from there. Like, Noah just, like, throughout most of the game, Noah is mostly, I wouldn't say reserved, but he has more of, like, the way he presents himself throughout most of the game is more modest. Not his personality, but most of the way he presents himself with his emotions are more modest.
Yeah, like you always try to look for a good way out.
Yeah, and he's always like modestly optimistic too. He's always like pretty optimistic in the game. But once he's in the jail and he's banging on the bar, basically busting open his knuckles, just banging on the wall, and it's just like, just starting to see him desperate like that is just like really interesting, and it just like starts to get pretty sad from there. Like I actually shed a few tears throughout that end of the chapter.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it's just like I was like, wow. Like, and then I expected like, oh, like the lost numbers are gonna break them out one of these days. They're in there or something. Nope, gets even worse. Basically,
like Shania.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting to see like Shania portray them and everything. That was kind of interesting in itself too. Like,
I mean, I had a feeling she was gonna do something, but
yeah, I feel like there should have been a little more build up to that, like, because it kind of came out of nowhere. They didn't really show that. I mean, she did seem a little suspicious, but I feel like they didn't really do a good job of showing that. That's really the only nitpick I have. Like, they should have maybe shown that.
Yeah,
shown her being
kind of like appeared annoyed in like 1 or 2 cutscenes.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely could have maybe showed her like be a little more like suspicious there. Like, she didn't really, honestly, like, it really didn't seem like she was gonna. I know that might have taken away from the twist, but it didn't really feel connected as well. So I feel like they could have maybe done a better job of connecting that. But everything else was just like, the way it was executed was just like, it went over the top basically, and it was just really, really interesting. And it's basically like that whole cutscene part of the game. That's basically like, oh, how will this get worse? It gets worse. And it, like, goes all the way up to because it was they were basically like waiting until like Mio's homecoming. Was that like a whole month they were in jail? I think.
I don't know.
I think it was like
that's the thing. Time is kind of weird with this game, where it's like things move faster than they seem.
Yeah, I know they skipped over a lot when they were like in jail there, but like it's just like almost all the characters were just like they were just showing parts of their personality that they never did before because they were in such a desperate situation.
Yeah,
Like,
and it really helped too because the previous things that happened, you were just kind of doing these chores in the prison, right? So the entire time you're just like, when will something happen? And then everything happens.
yeah, and and then there's a song that plays while they're in prison there, and it's just like, wow, they were just building up to the part, and then okay, let's talk about the Mio homecoming scene, like at the very end there. That was hard to watch. Even though, like,
It was, yeah.
even though that now we know that she's fine, the twist happened and everything, that was just hard to watch. Especially when N came up, and then, he told Noah to, send off Mio and everything. That was harsh. That was just hard to watch. I was just like, wow, I can't believe they're just going this far. That was just painful. Like,
yeah,
it was just. And then,
it was sad.
Yeah, that was just really sad there. And the music that played, that was such a heavy, impactful cutscene there. And yeah, I did not expect the game to go that far. But,
yeah.
Then after that, it's also weird too, because you think, like, at the last part where N basically, like, or the other Noah basically, he basically, like, almost, kills Noah, basically, like, and then it just cuts to black, and then it, shows the white void that Noah is in. Well, that's basically kind of like...
It reminded me of Xenoblade 1 when that happened. Because it was kind of similar, right?
Yeah. But, it showed, then it just got even... Well, I mean, that was crazy, too, with the parts that showed, like, their other lives. That was just really interesting. It was pretty sad, too. It just, like... for some reason, at first, I thought they were gonna, like, basically be reborn and then wake up, like, many years later into, like, a different scenario. That's almost what I thought they were doing at first, but that was just different stories of, like, their past lives, and that was just really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of them, they even had a kid, and it was just...
Oh, yeah, that part was, like...
It was just really sad. Like, they were just trying to pull the emotions out of me there. I was just like, wow.
I know, it kept getting, like, I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, okay, it's kind of sad, but, but then that part, I was like,
I was just like,
okay.
Especially when you know these, they make you so attached to Noah and Mio in this game, and then you see all of these cutscenes. It's almost like torture just watching these. Like, to see them die in different ways, I'm like, what is this game doing? Like, I know they have a purpose,
I wasn't expecting any of that, because, like, in past games, nothing like that really happens. Like, I know there's a few things here and there, but it's never, like, that. It never goes that far.
Yeah, that was just... And it's also pretty crazy, like, after, like, with the twist that you find out that, Mio's consciousness was swapped with the other Mio, and that was just pretty interesting as well.
Really good.
Yeah.
It had some very similarities with the first game.
Yeah, I thought of, like, Fiora, like, with Fiora and everything. It's basically...
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's basically, like, the Fiora thing, but basically, like, on a much small... Well, I wouldn't say, like, a smaller scale, but, like, a smaller amount of time. Like, the twist happens in just a shorter time span. But yeah, it's definitely a similar case to, Fiora and everything. Because you think she dies at first, and then... Like,
I was like, oh no, is she just gonna be gone from our party? Like, I thought they were gonna do something like that, but that wasn't the case.
And then there's even some crazy things that happen after that. You fight the Queen of Agnes, and then you see the Annihilator on their side, like, hit what presumably is the city, it's just that's another fake out as well, because like the
Yeah.
city was actually fine, but just wow, it's just like it just like this game just keeps going on. It just like it keeps pushing things even farther, and then that part with Shania and everything, and then
I know.
Yeah.
That entire part was it was like it wasn't really expected at all.
yeah,
Because
like
Xenoblade games haven't really gone that far.
yeah,
So
I was not expecting I mean, I like the twist. I mean, like I could see that happening like with Shania and everything, but I didn't expect her to just. I'm not gonna say it up for YouTube, but like basically just
yeah.
off. But yeah. Oh yeah, that was just. I feel like and then everything just fizzled out, and then we're just on our way again. But like, yeah, that whole scene was just crazy. I mean, like, I'm saying that, like, I'm questioning how the game will top this now, but I'm sure it will
Yeah.
at another
Honestly,
time.
I was like, is this the end? At one point I
Yeah.
was like, is this the end? Like did I miss something? Like, is this the end of the game
You
where,
know, it almost
you
seems
know,
like they would do something like this at the end. Like, this seems like the scale of something at the end. I'm thinking now the end is probably going to be insane. It's probably going to be absolutely insane. Seeing, like, the things we know now, they're probably going to reference something from the other Xenoblade games at the end. They're probably just...
yeah,
They're going to go, like...
because like, there's some connections, right? And I mean, they wouldn't have Amelia and Nia there for no reason.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about for that segment there, but... Man, I
It was
didn't...
crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not expect the game to go that far. That was crazy, and I'm just excited to see what will happen from this point. I just wanted to talk about, like, my experience and thoughts on the story so far. I'll have my full thoughts on the story, like, with my review, and I might even do, like, a whole review, I might do, like, a regular review and a story review if I end up doing a review in the future, depending on when I beat the game. But, yeah, overall, the story is great, and I would say it's definitely one of my favorite stories in a video game of all time. I feel like the end of Chapter 5 definitely solidified that. It's just, like, that was just amazing, and I feel like that part also kind of made Xenoblade 3 my favorite Xenoblade game, because the fact that it's willing to go this far and take these risks and actually create a really amazing story is I just really like that about this game.
Yeah, same.
So do
There
you
was
have
a lot of things I just didn't expect.
Yeah. So anyways, what are your final thoughts?
Honestly, it's just amazing, and I'm really excited to see where the game goes next, because, after such like a big moment like that, I'm expecting quite a bit from the next chapters, so I'm hoping it doesn't disappoint.
Yeah, same here. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.
See ya.